Many students have difficulty with argument diagramming, so I thought it would be helpful to create a video that can work through the steps towards diagramming. The argument here is the sort of thing that one might find in a board meeting, businesses discussing whether or not to acquire some other company. We should acquire the business because it has growing brand recognition and it could come to compete with us. Credit is tight. We have the cash and they are struggling to refinance their current debt. Thus, they would likely be interested in a bid from us. Moreover, even in this economy, they continue to turn a modest profit. In order to diagram this argument, we're going to have to be able to identify the conclusion, identify the premises towards that conclusion, and further work out what the logical structure is for the argument. A very valuable step in that process is to find the premise and conclusion indicators, words such as because, hence, thus, therefore, and so on. Also, often the word and is going to be useful to identify because that and may separate different premises from one another. So to begin, let's start underlining words that allow us to find premises and conclusions. Words such as because and. Here's another and. Here's a thus. And the word moreover also helps us identify premises. Now looking at this, we have to ask ourselves where the conclusion is. Well, thinking about the logic of this argument, the conclusion actually appears as the very first phrase. We should acquire the business. And the reason being it has growing brand recognition, reasons having to do with the fact that it's turning a profit, and related also is the possibility that this business could be acquired because of their debt situation. So in this instance, what we have is the conclusion appearing actually at the very beginning. Now that we have the premise indicators identified, let us begin to number all of the individual claims. So claim number one. Claim number one is in fact the conclusion. Claim number two. Claim number three. Claim number three. Now, credit is tight. That is a claim. We have the cash. That's another claim. They are struggling to refinance their debt. Another claim. Thus, 7. And lastly, we have 8. Even in this economy, they continue to turn a modest profit. So we have, now that we have the premises and the conclusion claims all numbered, it's sometimes helpful to rewrite the argument with simply numbers and the premise and conclusion indicators. To do so, we would basically do this. 1, because 2 and 3, 4, 5 and 6, thus 7, moreover 8. Rewriting the argument in this abbreviated form is helpful as a reference, although it's not necessarily on its own enough for you to be able to properly diagram the argument. So although rewriting the argument gives us a helpful template to start to diagram, it still on its own is not sufficient for us to diagram. We have to refer back to the original argument. Well, we know that the conclusion is claim number 1, so we can place at the bottom of our diagram the number 1. Reasons for number 1 include 2 and 3. Now, we see that 4, 5, and 6 are used as claims which lead to 7. Credit is tight, we have the cash, and they are struggling to refinance their debt. Thus, they would likely be interested in a bid from us. So 4, 5, and 6 work together to yield 7. And 8 on its own serves as an argument for buying the company. After all, the fact that this company is turning a profit is itself a reason for us wanting to buy it. Now, what we need to do is figure out exactly how all these component parts work together. As I've already said, 4, 5, and 6 are reasons for 7. So let me draw an arrow. And as I've said, 8 on its own is a reason for 1. Now, 2 and 3 are also being used as reasons for 1. And the last issue that we have is exactly how to connect 7 in with everything else. Think about it this way. We might want to buy the company, but in order for us to be able to buy it, they also want to be bought by us. So when you make a deal, what you need is both a willing buyer and a willing seller. So what we can say then is that 7 is a premise working with the other components, 2 and 3, and working with 8 as well, that we want to buy it and we think they'll want to sell it. So what I would do is the following. Since we want to say that 7 works in conjunction with the 2 plus 3 argument, I would add 7 to that argument. Although this may be a matter of nuanced interpretation, I would also add it to the 8. So what do we have? We have 4, 5, and 6 as a set of premises working together to give us reasons which support 7. And we have 7 as a complementary reason for 2 and 3 and for 8 respectively, where 2 and 3 serve as our reasons for wanting to buy the company, and 7 being their reason for wanting to sell the company, and 8 being a additional reason for our wanting to buy the company, and 7 likewise serving as a reason for their wanting to sell the company. So this is the way I would represent the argument.